Telling you, when it works, it's great. Cover up my stuff. Okay, so this one is going to be a participation one. I know it's after lunch and we're all kind of sleepy, but we're going to wake you up a little bit with this. So I'm expecting some participation. So I'm going to go over a few things and then we're going to open it up. So I titled this The Aftermath. This is the fourth time I've gone over this because I have done this with the other officials when we've done their training. And I think it's been pretty well received. And I think it's kind of an important exercise to go through. 2020 is behind us. We're almost through 2021. I think at this point in time, we really thought the pandemic would be behind us, and it just keeps hanging on. And we keep thinking it's getting better, and then it gets worse, and then it gets better, and it gets worse. We talked about this in 2020 because we just we're not in any way prepared for this pandemic and what it would do to our lives in every aspect. And certainly for us as providing the services that we provided. We went through a lot in 2020 and we're still dealing with some of it in 2021. As I don't know, the Treasurers Conference was the first one that we did that was fully, it was one that was fully in person. No, Clerks was. But I came back from the Treasurers with COVID, so it's still out there, you know. So we talked about in 2020 some of the information about preparedness plans, and that's really what I'm going to, but we're talking about now is kind of looking back at what we did, how it worked, and going forward on that. And now we're facing again, but we think we're getting better, and then they're saying, okay, this whole flu COVID season could be really bad. We don't know. And so again, hopefully we're more prepared for it now than we were. But we still need to keep those plans and continue to work on those. Get it to move. Okay. So way back in April of 2020, we issued the State Board of Accounts issued memos regarding the continuity of services. As you are all well aware, there was a variety of responses to the pandemic. I mean, we thought maybe it'll last 2 weeks. And like we said, now it's almost 2 years later and we're still dealing with it. We had issues where entire courthouses got shut down, where maybe your office got shut down to the public, but you were still coming in, where any variation thereof. And so we sent these memos out because we wanted to make sure and be clear that especially because it was going to last more than 2 weeks, that these government services still have to be provided. And you're all aware of that because you are the ones helping provide those services. So for your offices, you guys do payroll, you pay the vendor claims, you keep things moving, you do settlement, which gets the property taxes and excise out to the other units. Your other office, other recorders, became very well aware that the title companies were not real happy if they were not have access to those records. And they introduced legislation to make sure that did not happen. You had clerks that were struggling to do an election in the middle of this. So every office was really struggling with this and trying to get this done. And all of these services were vital. They had to keep going. Your citizens were still depending on these government services to continue. Couldn't just throw your hands up and say, that's it, we're done. We'll come back when it's all over. And that's what these plans were essentially supposed to do. Figure out how you can keep this going. We made it. And I think you all deserve a round of applause because you survived 2020. And for the most part, all of your services did continue. I never got a single call from anyone who didn't get a paycheck. Might have been late, but nobody failed to get their paycheck or failed to get their vendor claim. So you all really deserve a round of applause for getting through 2020. And those memos, by the way, are still available on our website if you have any questions or want to review those. And basically what we discussed in those was things to consider when you're setting up a plan. Some order of succession was one of them. The thing with the pandemic that you might not have had with other emergencies or threats, if there was a natural disaster or something, is you could have an entire office or courthouse that was shut down because of COVID. So it wasn't enough that if just just the auditor was out of the office, but that might take out the entire office. And so you needed to have some sort of order of succession so that if you as the auditor were not able to perform your duties, and maybe your first deputy and your second deputy, how are you going to get that done? Was there, think about it. Was there someone else in the courthouse that had worked in the auditor's office that may be able to go in and do some necessary functions to keep going? Someone that maybe was familiar with payroll that could work with assistants on that. And to think of that, hopefully before it happened, because once that happens, and you're not able to work, is not the time to be worrying about how payroll is going to get done or how claims are going to get paid. And so that's what the beauty of the plan is, that you put these things in place beforehand so they can be implemented when they're needed. Hopefully they're not ever needed, but if they are needed, they can be implemented. Again, you're delegating that authority for treasurers, for other offices, had bank accounts. How are you going to get access to those bank accounts transferred? What kind of procedures need to be done? What can be put off? What absolutely has to be done? Payroll has to get out. Are there other things that your office does that maybe can be done later that didn't need to be done right away? And get those procedures kind of lined up. Make sure you have information technology on board. So accessing your local system, your IT people, will you have remote access? Is that something? What kind of security do you need if you have remote access? Because suddenly you're working on home Wi-Fi's, which may not be as secure as the Wi-Fi at your courthouse. What kind of, and you're accessing payroll files, that's very sensitive data that you're getting into. All of those things have to be considered beforehand and should be part of those. And what we're talking about now is, like you said, we got through it for the most part. There may be still some hiccups. There are still some places where offices are closed down if someone within the office has COVID. They're not quite as serious now. There are other threats that can happen. Cyber threats, malware, things that can shut your system down, natural disasters. So it's a good idea that you have these plans. So do not throw these plans out or forget about them. Whatever you have, hold on to them and treat them as a living document. It's something that you're going to continue to work on. So you need to look back at what worked and what didn't. Correct any issues that might have happened or work on correcting those issues. Take stock of what you have or what you might need. What changes do you need to make? And then plan for the future. Put those revisions into your plan. So in the future, again, you're just fine tuning it, refining it, making it a little bit better going forward. So this is the part where we're going to need some group participation. We're going to look back at, again, 2020 for the most part, although we're already through part of 2021. And really the first part of this year was before the vaccines were out, and we still had some of these same issues. And what happened, what worked and what didn't, what could have worked better. We want to do some brainstorming. Ricky and I took a lot of phone calls during this time from a lot of different officials, so we know there were some really interesting things that were going on out there, and some very creative ideas, things we hadn't even thought of to work around some of these issues. My questions here. And so that's what we want to get here, is to get from you guys. It's brainstorm as a group. All of you are in the same office. There is no better group or peer of people that are going to understand what you went through. Even if you're talking to other officials within your county, really this group is going to understand what it was like to be an auditor during COVID. And so We're asking again for your stories. Maybe you just need to vent. Maybe you have some really good things that worked for you that you'd like to share, or you had some problems you couldn't overcome that maybe someone else has ideas that might have worked. And so that's what we're going to do for this part. It really depends on your participation in it. Ricky has the microphone. And so we have built-in time for this. So there is no rush. But I will start it off by asking questions. So anyone here, did your entire office get shut down because of COVID? Whole office? There's one back there by you if you don't have to walk too far. And tell us what you did, how you dealt with that.
Well, we all got sick at the same time, right before Christmas. Luckily, it was around, the Christmas holiday, so we got lucky with that. But we were just in contact with the commissioners. Debbie took care of payroll. We all pitched in, and, we shut down because we had to and we wanted to, and we got through it, and everybody got paid. And
did you work remotely, or did someone come in and
well, Debbie came in after hours and did the payroll, and then we just, somebody needed us, they called us, but it was a good time of year to shut down. We thought we almost made it, but it got us at the end of the year. Yeah.
That helps.
Tipton County had voting on the second floor, which happens to be where the recorder, the assessor, the auditor, and the treasurer are all located. And a week after the fall election, the auditor tested positive for COVID. I was gobsmacked, and my crew then were quarantined. I had one deputy that had been ill and wasn't present and wasn't exposed to me. So she carried the office.
Wow.
For days by herself. Early on, the title companies were concerned about access. So I talked to the treasurer, the recorder, the clerk, and we set specific hours where all 4 offices would be open and the title companies could come in and get their work done. And that worked out very, very well. And the title companies were more than grateful. They were really ecstatic that we made the commitment to keep commerce going in Tipton County.
That's good.
In Marion County, they closed our building down since we were kind of a central town that was spreading and catching more frequently than anybody. They shut the whole city county building down, and within 3 days, ISA had loaded the majority of the people that worked in the building with laptops because the police department just went through a refresh program. They had already had the laptops wiped clean. All we had to do is have them mirror our desktops, and within 3 days, they had the whole city county working from home. So we paid vendors, we paid payroll from home, and we could do the real estate deductions because we already received those online and did everything online with those. Number one, they considered us in the building payroll number one because everybody wants a paycheck.
Right.
So we were called essential, but what we did was have the managers come in every other day, sort through any mail, pick up any work, and distribute it electronically through our scanning system to staff members. And we were successful in keeping them out of the office until June, at which time we came back every other day and rotated the people every other day within the office
So
that
all
came.
the original documents stayed at the office. You just scanned out
Yep, we
copies.
just scanned them. We had a large copiers that had the scan function. So the managers of each department took their days off during the week, went ahead and scanned. We did not have any downtime whatsoever. We forwarded our phones to contacts within each department. So all the phones got answered. We were just fortunate enough that there was the available laptops
Yeah,
to do that.
that's critical.
But we had already gone online with everything. So my suggestion is work with your ISA or your IT department. We had nobody get COVID in our office from 2020 to January 1, 2020 to January or to December 31st of 2020.
Wow.
We've had a couple of scares, but nobody's actually. So we were really happy about that. And the entire enterprise, out of 4,000 employees, only a handful developed it.
It's incredible.
Our commissioners shut the courthouse down, and even though it was really a difficult time, it kind of was a bonding experience for me and the other elected officials. Matter of fact, our treasurer's here. The recorder was absolutely amazing. Our assessor never wanted to do e-filing, and we wanted to do e-filing, and it forced us to do e-filing. So she came around, but our recorder was really the hero because he quickly got it instrumented and set up, and then once everything kind of fell in place and the commissioners start letting us come back, even though the courthouse was still closed to everyone, they quickly got us all laptops. And so it was almost like we become this commune, this community that we just now rely on each other, and instead of being all these different departments. So you can say a lot of bad things about COVID, but one of the good things is I think it brought us all closer together. Hardly anybody got sick. I think, am I the only one that got it? I got it in November. Yeah, and our head of our public defender got it, or not public defender, probation officer got it. But I was really, really sick for 2 weeks in the fall, but we already had the whole scheme set up, and the treasurer was amazing how she collected taxes. We kind of made paper boxes, which were makeshift mailboxes, which, those big white boxes that you put papers in. And so we divided the mail up, and people took shifts coming in, so nobody really had to be with each other at the same time. And they got big cleaners, and they put in our buildings, and we still didn't open it to the public until, was it not a couple months ago, 3 months ago? Not very long ago. But the amazing thing is how we all pulled together, like you see after a hurricane or something. It's just this great sense of community. And I think all in all, for a bad experience, it was really quite wonderful experience.
Did anyone have any pushback because they weren't open to the public? Did they have public comments that were not very pleasant?
Yeah, I had pushback from all kinds of places that because we weren't open to the public or because we were working remotely, and we, even as much as these anonymous letters were sent to all of the council members and posted on the county attorney's door asking why we were able to work remotely and calling that ghost employment. And I'm just like, I tried to do what the rest of the people have already stated from, day one. And so I had to start bringing back some of my employees earlier than I wanted to, because there was this, bad omen out there. And I think it might have even been coming from someone in county government
That didn't get to work remotely, maybe?
that didn't get to work remotely, because not all of the department heads wanted laptops. And we had some departments that refused to have this new innovative thing called voicemail. And so when our offices were shut down, title companies would call, and the recorder's office, I'll just tell you who it was. And I'm just like, are you freaking kidding me? So that, I mean, really, that was some of my biggest problems through all of COVID, because, you know, I had a laptop from day one when I took office, as did my chief deputy. And we were ready to go March 18th when she told me she thought she'd been exposed to COVID. And I didn't see her face to face until 6 months later. And she worked every single day.
How'd you stay in touch for the most part?
Via, I mean, I bought these things called AirPods. And so I talk on my phone constantly.
Did you do any
With
meetings
AirPods?
through team or anything, or just
We
phone
did,
calls?
we did Zoom.
Zooms?
I mean, we did lots of Zoom meetings. We did, we were working a staggered workforce, because I instituted, then this was also very controversial unnecessarily, 10-hour work days. So so the people in my office work 4 10-hour days. I got pushback on that too from someone else that works in the building that doesn't work in my office. But I mean, it was really helpful because we had a staggered workforce. And so, you know, immediately I said, everybody in my office needs a laptop. We got this CARES money. And so we allocated some of the CARES money to buy laptops. You know, and then other offices were all pissed because my people were working from home because they had laptops. Well, they didn't want laptops until the second wave of COVID. And then everybody's hair was on fire that they all needed laptops. So it's been a real struggle for our IT department too,
Right.
just to manage all that. So I'm right there with you guys. It's been a struggle. But we don't think anyone got COVID. I was lucky. I never got it. But we don't think anyone got COVID at work in our office. We did have a couple of people that did get COVID, but it was, you know, they hugged their grandkid or something.
Can't blame them for that.
That brings up a point for me. One of our biggest challenges as the auditor's office, we worked through, I think we were closed, our office was actually closed one day because of an employee in the county that had been in our office. But one of the biggest challenges was our work doubled in the auditor's office. Our people were home, they sold and they bought, and the title companies and the banks were pushing. The problem was recorder's office, not so much. They only wanted to work so long. Treasurer's office, they only wanted to work so long. I mean, that was one of our biggest challenges because they wanted to cash out and go home, and we were still there trying to work. So that was probably.
So there
one of the
wasn't a
biggest
real
things.
coordination, like someone had really good coordination. You guys didn't have that with the offices.
It's gotta be up here.
How did you track your employees that were working from home? Did you have to institute new measures for that?
So we created the work from home policy in the middle of it. Of course, I had to spearhead that because nobody else said anything. And then they had to log their daily work that had to be attached to their time cards. And we had to, our office specifically, we were able to work from home for the most part, but one person would go in every other day for a few hours and do all the e-filing, and claims would come in and run claims, but we did create the work from home policy, and they had to log all of their work hours and what they were doing, and their department head had to sign off on that. And who has number 41?
Look, right there. Right there. There's a match.
Is that bingo? Anyone else do anything different for tracking their work from home hours?
You make me walk all the way back over there.
Sorry. You know, when we first got shut down on March 23rd or whatever it was, I was, you know, the people that didn't have laptops, because we shut down the building. I mean, nobody was, I told them, I go, do something that makes you a better employee when you get back than you are today. I go, if you read the Bible, if you do Excel training online, if you do something, some of us that have laptops, we were working, like somebody said, twice as hard as we were before. Then as everybody got laptops, we were able to, be able to see what they were doing, make sure that they were doing their scanning project or whatever. And I actually asked my chief deputy if she could give me an explanation of how we did that, because she's a lot better than I am. And she said that she was in daily contact with those working remote and kept track of emails, calls, etc., what they were doing. So she's a rock star and she's listening. So thanks, Daleen. And I'm number 8.
See, if you answer, you got a chance to find your partner.
That's true. Everybody's gonna be like me. I am appreciative of the aisleways between the tables. I don't always get that at conferences. Oh, I'm sorry. This is number 8, right here.
Bingo.
Pointed.
She didn't say anything though. She has nothing to say on the topic.
Nothing to say on the topic now. Anybody?
I wanted to see if anybody else had this phenomena happen, is when they did come back to work full time, if they worked out of the office remotely, some of them felt like they no longer needed a manager.
Huh?
And I think more of it was disgruntled that they had to come back in the office. Well, if we've worked at home for so long, what they don't know is they were being tracked online. We could monitor their work from home, from online, and see what the workload was getting done and the product that was coming back. But I actually had 3 or 4 people that want to go out and work remote if they get a cold, So but
gotta hang me
one
on
thing
one
that
of
I
them.
did see is if they were disgruntled with their management and was like, how dare you say something to me now?
Wow.
I had a couple of those in OCC, which is our attorneys. The biggest whiners have been in the attorney's office. Why can't I continually work from home? So.
Did anyone stagger their
I don't know.
workforce?
Did you have something you wanted to say? So the answer is no. Okay. Thank you. It's like being. I thought you were 49. What other questions you got?
Yes, it's a question right there.
So how did other auditors handle? We had it's not fair. Oh, woe is me. because the highway department, sheriff's department, 911, they had to continue working while the rest of us got to work remotely. That's not fair. So how did other offices handle that situation? We basically just told them to get over it, but there might be a better way to say that.
Did anyone use any method besides the get over it method?
I already found my match, so. But no, we had, we called a special meeting, not a special meeting, but we put on the agenda for the commissioners for each office to appear before the commissioners and determine whether they were essential or non-essential workers. And we kind of set that precedent early on in that process as to why these people would have to continue working and why others could work from home if they were able to do so.
Pre-planning, I like it. Yes.
Has anyone given any of their ARP money as benefit or stipend or excess pay or whatever to
The
some of
premium
those
pay?
people? Yeah, premium pay to any of those people that were deemed essential. And if so, how did you do that calculation and make that allocation?
Meeting in her hotel room. What was your, I'm sorry.
So we did an ordinance to, because our sheriff's office is suffering tremendous loss with the RV industry up in our area. The pay at the RV factories is through the roof right now. And so to try to retain some of those long-term employees, they determined they were going to use some ARPA dollars to give two bonuses, but for lack of a better word, bonus payments. We actually determined that the first one didn't have to be out of ARPA dollars because their budget, they still have so much left over in their budget right now. But that has then opened a whole nother can of worms because now we have township fire departments coming saying, well, you paid them, our workers deserve this too. We've had our judges now saying, well, if you're going to use ARPA dollars, you have to do that for us. So it's really opened a whole nother can of worms. So our hope is the sheriff will have enough in his budget to pay out the second installment by the end of the year. So we don't have to use ARPA dollars. So we can kind of get away from that.
Yeah, that can be a problem.
But the sheriff's office at this point is the only one that we've done that for.
Yeah, you really can't send your sheriff deputies and your jailers to work remote. Kind of work that way. You got to call in the crime, I guess. I don't know.
I mean, and it's so bad. We're pulling them off of patrol to work the jail, which adds another
is,
layer.
yeah, leaves your county insecure. Yeah, that's a problem.
Our unionized workers that were essential were negotiated with the unions. The other essential employees, at the end of the year, they batched the CARES money that was specific for that and gave everybody across the board a 3% basically bonus or whatever they were calling it at the time, which was pretty fair. Everybody's life was turned into turmoil. The jailers were, I called the sheriff one day. I said, how is it going over there? And he goes, basically everybody there's got COVID. The sheriffs, everybody's got COVID. So in order to keep it safe there, they offered the street deputies a bonus add-on to their salaries, significant amount, like $25 an hour increase for the time that they volunteered to go over and work in the jail. And that helped him get through the process. So it was expensive, but well worth it.
Okay, we'll got 5 minutes left. We'll wrap this up then. Okay, so we've listened to some of these things. I hope you've heard some interesting stories. I think there's certainly a lot of different ways to approach this, depending on the size of your county and what your resources are. What we really want you to do is take stock in your plan, where you're at. Do you need to buy laptops if you don't have them? Is that something that needs to be done? What is it going to cost? Set up some kind of budget information, set up some kind of plan. You're not going to get it all at once, but there is money out there. There is grant money that might be available to do some of this. And now would be the time to be asking for it. But look at your plan. I mean, we're still dealing with it. Are you still going to need those? Are you still going to need hand sanitizers? You're still going to need masks. How are you going to deal with the public? Because COVID hasn't completely gone away. All of these things need to be reviewed. They need to be updated so that you keep on track with what you're doing, okay? So don't throw the plans away. Make sure you're looking at them. Make sure you're updating them. Again, look at what didn't work and what you might need. Again, equipment. Look at work with your IT department. They're going to be a very valuable resource for security reasons, especially if there is remote work involved, if you're going to allow any kind of remote work in the future. Look at your policies on how you're going to track that kind of work that's being done so that they can be accountable for it. So if your citizens are complaining, you can say, we are tracking that work, they are producing. Make sure all of that is in there. Make sure you have controls in place. We also ask that because of the way the work was done in 2020 and now hopefully has already been reviewed, but in 2021, look at what the work that was done in there. Make sure everything did get done. Some stuff got pushed off simply because you didn't have time. It wasn't a priority, but go back and look at it. Make sure everything is up to date. Everything is caught back up again as you have time, that the work has been reviewed. If you were out sick for any length of time and someone else was troubleshooting for you or taking over your responsibilities, go back and review that. Do the oversight on that. Make sure all of that has been checked. Already talked about that. Okay. And then again, make your plans for moving forward, set your priorities, determine your budget, set some kind of timeline when it would be good to have these, and update this plan. As often as necessary. You do not need to be looking at it every day. I think I told the others, you don't need to sleep with it under your pillow like I do my internal control manual. But you do need to look at it occasionally. Don't just put it in a file somewhere and in 10 years, your successor auditor is going to go, what is this? Keep it up to date. So as things change, as technology changes, as resources, as personnel change, take a look at it and update it and keep it ready, because again, you don't know what the next whether it's going to be a pandemic, again, whether it's going to be a natural emergency, a tornado or a flood, whether it's going to be a cyber attack. We don't know what it is, and we need to be as prepared as possible. Can a plan fail? Yes, it can. But if you don't plan, it's just that much difficult. We heard stories from others where they were sneaking into the courthouse at midnight to try and do their work because the commissioners wouldn't let them in. You need plans. That's no life for anybody to have to do things like that. So get your plans in place, get them to where they're recognized and they're approved, so that if this happens again going forward, you can stay on top of this. If you have questions, these plans are all unique to your office and your resources. Ricky and I will be glad to brainstorm with you anytime, just like with your internal controls. We can't write them for you because we don't know what your resources are. But we're more than willing to talk about them and go over them and deal. If you had issues you could not overcome, to brainstorm ideas. This group, these are all of your peers. This is a wonderful group, even beyond this, to get together at your district meetings or with your math emails to ask for help, because you all have been through it, and someone else might have. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. Someone else might have a solution to your problem that would really help you out. So don't ever think, I can't ask a fellow auditor. You've got each other to lean on. AIC is another really good resource for this. So use your resources. Don't feel like you're alone in all of this. Okay. And it is